Hey everyone, I am excited today. The high temperature is 53 degrees. It's a big relief after hot, humid weather the past couple days. Yesterday was 86 and the day before was 94. So, as soon as somebody mentioned this in my comments, I knew I just had to go out and see what I could find. So, to help purify these ponds, someone had the idea of getting a solar air pump, just like a fish tank has. You see? An air stone. Not only is that putting oxygen in the water, but it's also helping remove contaminants like ammonia. Now, this tiny model here, I think is the best solution you could possibly get. I bought two different models and I'm going to show you both of them. So this one right here, the price, I believe, was $34 or so. This thing is very cool. And underneath here, you see it pops off very easily, so you can go underneath to the modes. I'm pretty sure that pushing the mode button, since there's no noticeable difference, I believe this activates the battery or something. Not 100% on that, but this has a battery backup. I couldn't believe it. It went all night on a single charge. Yeah, this thing I'm holding in my hand, it's vibrating, but it's very, very quiet. This thing came with two air stones. It came with a splitter and maybe about 5 feet of hose, maybe 6 feet of hose. Came with this splitter right here. And now air stones, the quality control is never that great. It's always been that way, even when I had aquariums. You see how this one's barely running? If I go and crush this hose, oh, there it goes. It's starting to pick up. So this kit, I think it should have came with a tiny little regulating valve that you'd put on the one that's going more. But those are pretty cheap to get. At least it was when I used to do fish tank stuff. The aquarium store would have like a big box and they were like 50 cents a piece, a little tiny valve to control it. But honestly, this pond is so small, it doesn't really need to. But there's all kinds of configurations you could get instead. You can get a long air stone and just have one in there. There's lots of possibilities for something like this. There are. I'm actually thinking about just bringing it down to one air stone, but I'll leave it like this for now. So that device was about $34 and it has a battery backup. That is very awesome. This thing runs 24/7. Yep. All right, everyone, here we come down to the big pond. Now, this is the other device I bought from Amazon. This was about $170. It's got the big solar panel with the kickstand going into the ground. Now, I decided this year I'm not going to mow near the pond at all. I'm going to let the vegetation grow tons. I'm not mowing beyond this point this year at all. I want the vegetation to really grow in. Now, this is a pretty big solar panel. It's got the wire going back over here into the more shady area. It's got this really big air compressor here, and you can see all the humidity in the lines because it rained yesterday. But it's got to be waterproof, right? It's made for ponds. Now, this thing, I think it's because it is cloudy day. I can hear it going vroom, vroom, like there's not enough power coming to it to keep it on all the time. And for shady days, I think they should have gave it a bigger solar panel, especially for that price. Like my solar fountain. This is an oversized solar panel that works well into the night and on shady, cloudy days, just the same as it does on a sunny day because it's oversized. Now this has, you see, 5 hoses coming off it. Now, because there's so many, I feel like they didn't involve enough airline because they don't go very far, but they're all down right now in the deepest section of the pond. The deepest portion of this pond is almost 4 feet deep. I intentionally built it that way so it can't freeze solid during our extreme winters. But you see, just like I mentioned, you see how it's going vroom, vroom, little burst. Still, that's adding a lot of water, and because it's coming up from 4 feet deep, that is definitely helping out. Just look at all the tadpoles you can probably see swimming in the deep areas. Most of them hang out on the edges. And now going over to the solar fountain. This solar fountain, it gets clogged a lot. Ooh, a big frog. That right there is our bullfrog. He is almost 100% filling up on those tadpoles. But it's natural. We're not going to prevent him from eating the tadpoles. It may have been a frog during a rainy night. Something ate almost every tadpole in one of our little pools. May have been a frog. So you see this? With this one here, I have to remove the sprinkler head because these tiny little holes clog up. Let me pause the camera. All right, so I just took this out, shook it off in the water. All the holes are clean. Now, you don't want to keep it out of the water too long with the solar panel uncovered. But what I do here is, see, I just want to get this grass out. I grind it through as best as I can with my finger, and I'm going to throw it back in without the sprinkler head, just so it can flush any gunk out of itself. Just give it like a couple seconds like that. Now that it's flowing to its max, I'm going to pull it back out of the water. And I got to pause you guys again because this screws on pretty tight. Alrighty, got it back on, and now watch how far this thing fires. These sprinklers come with like a dozen little heads. This is not the furthest stream. The furthest stream, those would clog even worse. But watch. That'll be clogged again in a few hours. Wait for it to kick in. Priming itself. There we go. Nice little sprinkler. And I think if it was sunny out, it may go a little higher up. I guess today is a very cloudy day. It's darker than normal. Got a strawberry plant growing. We have wild strawberries everywhere since we don't put down fertilizers or anything. Keeps them around. Now, the majority of my fountains, like this one right here, I don't put a sprinkler head on at all because it's such a pain in the butt. I just simply, every day, grind through with my finger like that. Oh, that one kicked back in. Just throw it in there, and you don't have to go through that stuff like the others. Come on, prime. It's about to prime itself. And for not having a sprinkler head at all, that's not bad. Not bad at all. Still doing something. Moving the water around, which is the goal. So, for your money's value, I think the smaller air machine is better. The smaller air compressor is better. I think I would have rathered have, let me do that math. Yeah, I could have bought 5 of the smaller ones for this one's price, and this big one doesn't even have a battery backup. Yep, so eventually when this big one breaks, I'll probably just get like 2 of the cheaper ones in here. That would be the way to go. Way to go. So I have a lot of barn swallows on the property, and I have 2 of them that have been coming every single year since I lived here. And they usually have 2 sets of babies every year on top of my security lights. But you may have saw my short video of the one who built a nest inside of my garage, because I usually leave the door open since I'm in and out so much. They put that nest up in a period of a day or so. But I didn't even notice it. But I moved the nest. Barn swallows like to be under ledges or inside buildings. My house has about a 2-foot overhang around the entire thing. Parts of the building, it's even 3 feet. I don't want them around my house because of the pooping, but the garage has a pretty big overhang, maybe about 8 inches, big enough for them. That's where one of the security lights is. I'm going to screw these maybe a foot underneath the ledge so they feel nice and safe and they're dry, they're in the shade. From underneath, this looks pretty good. The barn's red, and it doesn't matter what the top looks like. You're not going to see this from down below. With these 3 screws, just going to get screwed to the building. Same with this one. Just screw it to the building from down below. Won't be too noticeable at all. And I'm hoping next year they'll build, or maybe even later this year. I just tore that nest down last week. So this was just scrap wood. I built a seat delete system for the back seat of the truck. And I thought that I could make something with the scraps. Yeah, I bought a seat delete system online from a company called Goose Gear. It was my mistake. I accidentally ordered the wrong part, so it didn't fit the truck correctly. I didn't realize that every trim level of truck is slightly different sizes in the back. So I had to return that, and I decided to build my own with 2x4s. No, 2x6s and a big sheet of plywood. I wanted 2x6s because I have little plastic boxes I can slide in between them. I built it like the floor of a house. You can slide little boxes and all kinds of equipment underneath the bed. And yeah, Goose Gear, I won't do business with them again. It was my fault about ordering the wrong part, but they charged me a couple $100s to ship it here. I had to pay, oh my gosh, almost $600 to send it back to them, and they have a 20% restocking fee. So by the end of that, I lost like 70% of my money. They have an awful return policy, but it was my mistake to begin with, and if I didn't make that mistake, it may have worked out. I wanted something that looked very professional, but what I built myself turned out pretty well too. And what I built myself only cost me about $100. Sheet of plywood. Wow, lumber prices are back down since they're high a few years ago. The 2x6s were about $6 a piece, non-pressure treated. I only needed 3 of them for the project because I left pretty big spans, almost 2 feet wide underneath. The plywood, I used pine plywood, which was 1/2 inch. A sheet of that. I had the Home Depot cut it, so it would be absolutely perfect. That was $47.75 exactly. I used a 2x3 in the front of it with feet going down to the floor. And let me think. Anyways, it came to about 70-something dollars, the wood. And then I bought a bunch of commercial Rust-Oleum spray paint, which is great for wood. Look at that, it leaves it nice and polished after just 1 quick coat. The plywood itself needed 4 coats because it kept absorbing it like a sponge, but I eventually got the nice glossy look I was looking for. Does anybody know what kind of wild animals like drinking beer? I bought a 6-pack of Budweiser just to put out here in the garden, because slugs are supposed to go in there and just get trapped in the beer. It stops them from eating the vegetable garden, but something came by and drank most of it. Around the edge of the garden, it worked awesome. This right here is vinegar, white vinegar from Walmart. It's about $3 a gallon. Put it in the pump sprayer, sprayed along here because I don't want the electric fence shorting out. Vinegar does not work great with all types of grass, as you can see. This will probably bounce back from the vinegar, especially it being cooler and rainier today. But it killed the majority of it. It did not kill this aspen tree, which is trying to grow back. But it did a great job. Look at that. Yep. I used vinegar around my shed, around the house, because I don't like weed whacking. I think it's way better just to do this. It's all natural. Now, there are some stubborn grasses that grow on the property against the immediate building. So I bought Roundup as a last resort. Didn't really have to use it. The grass just completely died out. Now, I don't use any herbicides or insecticides anywhere except against the immediate building. Don't use them anywhere else. Don't want to pollute the land, and I want animals to keep coming back and forth to the property. Right here next to my garden, I have a squirrel trap. I'm relocating. We have red squirrels. The gray ones are very friendly, and they're not very destructive. The red ones, though, will chase away the gray ones. They're very aggressive at times, and they like chewing buildings, and I think one of them was in my wall. I can hear right now, I don't know if you can hear, but I can hear something inside of my trees chewing. That's what's killing all these trees. There's bugs. So we already relocated just one squirrel. I guess there's not that many. They usually come closer to the house in the winter for food. We moved one, and someone did bring up a good point. Make sure you're not relocating ones that could have babies. So we'll wait until their season's over and start trapping again. So the only ones we're relocating now are the males. If we catch a female, we'll just let it go. That person did bring up a good point. But we've only actually caught one so far. Some big animal set off all the traps one night. We're not setting any of my big raccoon traps, even though they are capable of catching a squirrel, because I don't want to catch a raccoon or anything like that. I actually like the raccoons. I've only seen them a couple times on my trail cameras, but I want to become friends with them if I get the chance. Yeah, nothing's in there. I set that one off because I didn't feel like walking out here multiple times a day to look at it anymore. Here's this little pond. It's a little bit too shady, and combined with the overcast, this one's not running. So it appears these, even though they have a bigger solar panel, some of them overcast and shade, that's a game changer. But if it's just one or the other, they seem to work. Look at how much the grass took off here. This was transplanted grass because the hill was having trouble staying together since the turkeys kept tearing it apart looking for grass seed to eat. And we even transplanted some strawberries. That's what those flowers are. We have wild strawberries everywhere. Here's the back hill. You see how it's not doing very well without transplanting anything of my own? Grass is having a bit of problems growing. And it's so shady, I think these cattail bulbs are going to die out here. And look at that water. It turned like orangey from all the wood and decay. But these are here in case the tree frogs wanted to lay eggs. This right here, yeah, last year the tree frogs laid eggs here. This is a big standing pool of water throughout the spring, and it dries up. Right here under my bridge, I made this little channel just to concentrate the water. Then it can open back up into a marsh just to keep it solid where the supports of the bridge are. I gotta come out here maybe with an air gun and like spray out these joints because that'll help it rot now that soil's starting to build up in there. I think the squirrels, which is a good thing, I think most of them are afraid to come near the house because they only seem to be out here, and they also don't seem to be going near the gardens either. I just brought the trail camera from this bridge inside. I gotta review that tonight and see if I can get any cool animal footage out of it. I'll probably delete most of it, but if we get anything cool like a moose walking by, I'll definitely save that. And we have another trail camera out here in this blowdown area, hoping seedlings will start growing back now that we raked up most of the ground. See trees like this, I always give these a chance to survive, because if you look up, did it already die? There was a couple leaves on it the other day. Well, until it's dead, I'll leave it standing. Looks like the base is already starting to grow again. Sometimes trees survive. You'd be amazed. It looks like this little tree here in the wind the other day, it's starting to lift up. It might topple pretty soon. Yeah, you see this maple tree? Look at this. This thing fell over 2 years ago, and I cut it out of the way of the trail. There's a good chance this thing could survive indefinitely like this. This new growth will just expand. It'll always be a really weird looking tree, but there's a chance it'll survive. That'll definitely survive the base that uprooted. You see it's already sending out a bunch of shoots. You see this really big white pine tree here that fell over last year? I made a little chair out of it, kinda. But when this thing fell over, it broke the top off of this maple tree. Is this stable? It's kind of weak, but I think it could strengthen itself up and repair itself, hopefully. I cut the top off and it's already got a lot of growth. I don't think it's gonna die for a while. I think it can recover. The grass in the forest that I planted isn't doing that great, but this whole week has really cool temperatures and on and off rain chances. Hopefully some of this will start taking off. I threw $150 worth of grass seed around the forest floor and raked it in. Because I was trying to make the forest floor greener to retain moisture and maybe act as more of an incubator for seedlings. See this maple tree here? See, it's so weak because trees in the forest grow so skinny trying to get to the sun that they need each other for support. And since other trees fell down, not much is supporting that one. It's kind of weak. Should I leave it the way it is and maybe this weird bowing tree will just start shoots all off it and it'll look cool? Or should I cut it like 10 feet from the ground and let it restart so it kind of straightens itself out? I like making these little vlog videos of what I'm doing when I'm bored at home, and I'm glad you guys enjoy what I have to say. And as long as you guys like them, I'll keep on making short videos like this. Since it's nice and cool day, I'm gonna do some oil changes I've been putting off. Snowblower, 2 lawnmowers, and a generator, which I'll probably never use, but it's there in case of an emergency. I'm gonna start up all those machines today and run them for like 10 minutes, let them cool down for a bit, because you want to get all the particles in the oil pans up and moving around. Then I'm going to change all the oils. I'll do that maybe in another video tonight. Thanks for watching, everybody, and have a great day. So everyone, I got a tiny little project going on right now before we move on to the oil changes. If you saw one of my recent videos, I was talking about how I ordered 3 cords of firewood to subsidize since my wood isn't as good, and a lot of it is evergreen. Evergreen is one of the fastest curing, drying firewoods there are, but it's the bark, the sap. It can take 2 or 3 years before that hardens where it won't cause creosote buildup. So next year, I bought a bunch of this. I'm gonna mix in with it. So I got this from a guy who, he logs his forest, he digs up the root balls of the trees, sells it as mulch. Then he sells the topsoil. Then he sells the soil underneath that. Then he sells the sand. Then he jackhammers with excavators the bedrock, sells it as gravel, gets precious minerals out of the ground. He basically uses everything until there's a giant hole. I don't know what he does with it after that. I don't know how long he's been going. But I thought it was interesting. Look at the color difference right here. I thought that was interesting. Delivered a week ago, delivered today. Can you see that drastic color difference? Because these trees are cut down almost the same day they're delivered. Look at that. They're already fading compared to the ones here that are still wet that I just stacked. That's how fresh they are. They're still they're still wet. But I gotta say, wood burning is some back-breaking work, especially if you are doing every bit and piece of it yourself. If you are cutting the tree down yourself, cutting it into logs, hauling it out of the woods with a wagon, splitting it, stacking it, tarping it, letting it dry, unstacking it, moving it closer to the house, stacking it again, burning it, that's a lot of back-breaking work. Most of my trees are softwood, pine, evergreen, fir trees, aspen, pretty light, those softwood trees. This stuff here is twice as energy dense, meaning you need only half the wood to heat the house, which is the good thing. But this stuff is very heavy to haul around. Even when it's dry, it's still extremely heavy, heavier than the wet pine when this stuff is dry. But this stuff here, the smaller ones can be burned this coming winter, but these bigger ones that you call an all-nighter, you throw that in before bedtime so it can smolder all night long, and the fireplace will still be hot when you get up in the morning or get home from work. It can run non-stop 24/7. I am going to stick with burning firewood. I think it's actually relaxing processing it myself when I have it dried enough to do so. I like watching it burn, like sitting in front of it. It's really good. I have cut my fuel consumption by 90% since I switched to wood burning, which is considered green energy, got a massive rebate that helped pay for the system. If I stick with this, even buying it, it's way cheaper than fuel. If I stick with it for the next 2 or 3 years, the wood stove will completely pay for itself. It'll be back with energy savings. And yep, I just want to break even. Yep. The biggest thing is those nights when it gets down close to -40. Those nights right there, and -40 is the crossing point between Fahrenheit and Celsius. We never actually hit that, but we got pretty close, only a couple of degrees away this past year. We got pretty close. That night, we didn't run the furnace at all, completely wood stove. Kept the whole house pretty nice. Not as hot as it usually would be, but it kept it very good for those temperatures. Really good. And those are the nights you would burn through 8-10 gallons of diesel fuel every single night running the furnace. We didn't have to do that at all. The only time the furnace ran are days I was gone and the wood stove just burned out. That's about it. But now I just gotta come over here and rake up this pile that's all over the driveway. And once this bark and little pieces of wood dry out, that'll make great kindling for next season. I'm gonna rake up the best of it. Then the really fine stuff I'm gonna throw into the outdoor fire pit. So this is the barrel I'm gonna use. This stuff will be good dry kindling for indoor burning next year, and then I'll just put a piece of plywood over it to cover it. I don't actually have the cover. I took this thing just because it's so heavy duty, and I believe it's really old. Is there a date on it? I believed there was a date somewhere, maybe. Yeah, 1919. That is a very old barrel. And look, it's still in relatively good shape. Good luck buying anything that good these days. It's still in great shape. It doesn't hold water. It's got a bit of pitting and rust holes through the bottom. But I found this thing hiking in the woods about 2 miles deep behind my house. And that's what I did that day. This thing is heavy. I rolled it back those 2 miles one day, just because I was bored and I really wanted the thing. A baby tick, the smallest one I've seen all year right there.